Grant, I'm sorry I haven't a clue. The antidote to panel games. At the piano is Colin Sell, and your chairman is Humphrey Lyttelton.
Now, collectors of music trivia may be interested to learn that Colin was on the original Route 66. But then it went over to one-man operated buses. Musical accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell, who tells me that he's thinking of branching into artist management. Apparently he has this dream of handling the Spice Girls. Mrs. Sell says it's the only thing that gets him up in the morning. One repeated deviation that's almost impossible to say without hesitation is that Colin Sell will provide piano accompaniment. Actually, listeners may be interested to hear that Colin doesn't only play the piano. Oh, no. He's recently become a bit of an expert with the panpipes. So if anyone has a blocked toilet they want cleared... just give him a ring. Okay, the song is... Well, that was just a lie. Challenge. Shut up. Challenge from Graham Garden. This time it's the song One Man Went to Mow. Colin?
Who's starting, Hump?
Oh, you say. You've taken over the bloody show.
Oh! Right. One man went to mow.
Well, it says it's nearly... It says, well, it's nearly time to go. I think this is addressed to you, Colin. So while the audience suspends their disbelief, I'll ask each of the team members to sing a song in the style of my choosing, while Colin Sell attempts to provide musical backing in the style of a pianist. Actually, Colin was telling me he's been working on a new string arrangement. And if W.H. Smith liked that, they might let him tidy up the sellotape and brown paper display as well. Barry, I'd like you... Now, as this round requires accompaniment, listeners will be shocked to learn that regular pianist Colin Sell was double booked this evening. However, after an acrimonious row and the threat of legal action, the other show reluctantly conceded defeat and agreed to take him. As it's a musical round, piano accompaniment will be provided by Neil Innes. Neil was founder member of the legendary Bonzo Dog Doodah Band and worked with the Monty Python team before going on to form the Ruttles. But these comprise but a small sample of the successes that put Neil where he is today. Standing in for Colin Sell. Actually, as Colin wasn't with us for the last show, we held a phone-in poll to gauge listeners' reaction. Nothing could have prepared us for the overwhelming weight of public response. But he's ignored that and turned up. Actually, music historians will be interested to learn that every one of Colin's records is still in the charts. 23 degrees west of the North Foreland, where the Admiralty had them dumped. Okay, teams. Musical accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell, who many listeners may remember from the 1970s when he played the mouth organ in Black Lace. It's still known as one of the worst novelty drag acts ever to appear. The songs will be accompanied on the piano by Colin Sell. Actually, we're all very excited for Colin, as he's been invited to play at a U2 gig. What great reunion dances those German submarine crews. Musical accompaniment will be provided by our resident pianist Colin Sell, whose mother tells me he mastered the scales at the age of 6. And by 7 he could flush the bathroom toilet all by himself. Do bear in mind, teams, that excessive use of the buzzer may drown out the piano accompaniment of Colin Sell. If that doesn't work, you might try banging a shoe on the desk. As ever, Colin Sell will be providing backup on the piano, although that's by no means his only instrument. In fact, I have a cutting here from Jazz Monthly magazine written by their top reviewer. It reads, "When I heard Colin Sell playing the mouth organ, I rushed in just in time to catch his set. He really should use a stronger denture fix if he wants to blow that hard." You're to start, Tim and Sandy. As usual, musical accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell, who I hear caused panic on the stock market recently simply by shouting his name 3 times down the telephone. It's Colin, Colin, Colin. Piano accompaniment will be provided by none other than Colin Sell. Colin is someone who, despite everything, really has left his mark on the piano. I don't know how many times we've told him to stop scratching his initials on the lid. The tunes to go with your song lyrics will be played at the piano by Colin Sell. Listeners may be interested to learn that Colin constantly receives notes from avid pop fans. Here's one. 2 extra bottles of Tizer, but no Vimto. We'll start with you. Piano accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell, who, we were impressed to hear, was once asked by Bud Flanagan to do Underneath the Arches. Colin was so good, Mr. Flanagan got him to clean the windscreen and empty the ashtray as well. Okay, Barry and Gray. We have Colin Sell at the piano. Tim, we'll start with you. Yeah, a round of applause for Colin. Better to make certain of it at the beginning. Backing will be provided, as ever, by Colin Sell at the piano. Actually, we were interested to hear that Colin has recently been enjoying himself in the brass section. The manageress of Dorothy Perkins says if she catches him in there again, she'll call the police. Tim and Fred, we'll start with you, will you? Piano accompaniment will be provided by none other than Colin Sell. Actually, we were all highly impressed to learn that back in the 80s, Bob Geldof asked Colin to go to Wembley for Band-Aid. But the chemist was shut, so he went to Boots and got his Barry and Graham. As a matter of fact, Colin was telling us earlier that he's touring again. He cleverly spotted a gap in the live music market and formed a tribute band playing Catholic retirement homes. They call themselves Pope, John, Paul, and Bingo. Piano accompaniment in this round will be provided by Colin Sell. Many people might not realize that Colin was once a rock legend. Then he expanded into Candy Floss and his store collapsed. Okay, you're starting. Piano accompaniment will be provided, as ever, by Colin Sell. Actually, we were all a bit upset to hear that Colin has recently had a bit of trouble with one of his music exams. He was all right up to the section where it was time to test his canticles. At which point the invigilator threw him out for taking his trousers off. Okay, let's move on to a musical round now. It's called One Song to the Tune of Another. Piano accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell. Going to start with you, Tim. I'd like you to start by singing the words of Nobody Loves a Fairy When She's 40 to the tune of Danny Boy.
Did you mention the word accompaniment?
Yes. Interesting thing about Colin Sell.
I'm ready now, Hump.
Thanks, because I couldn't remember it. Accompaniment here will be provided by Colin Sell at the piano. Incidentally, we were all surprised to hear that Colin has recently been standing in for Oasis. He spent 4 days holding up a dried arrangement at the Chelsea Flower Show. Okay. The game is called Karaoke Koki, and it'll combine the musical skills needed for karaoke with the choreographic dexterity required of the hokey koki. Luckily, we have with us a Hokey Koki Championship finalist of 1978 in the guise of Colin Sell. Colin amazed the judges with his rendition of "You put your left leg in, your right leg in," but was disqualified for reading from the instructions that came with his new trousers. The teams will be accompanied at the piano by Colin Sell. Now, listeners will be surprised to hear that pop legend Cliff Richard once insisted that Colin play in the shadows. But then he's not a pretty sight in broad daylight. We'll start with you, Barry and Graham. The teams will each sing a song in the style of a fabulous showbiz talent, while Colin Sell will play the piano in the corner. Actually, when music experts hear Colin's compositions, they often say he could have been another Berlin Porter or anybody else employed by the German State Railway. Is there no limit to the unlikely combinations that can be put together in the name of entertainment? Yes, there is. Colin Sell and the piano. Actually, for a long time, we were all very impressed by Colin's amazing musical ear, until we discovered he was picking up Radio 2 on his deaf aid. We'll start with you, Barry and Graham. Listeners will be interested to learn that Christmas was made extra special for Colin, as he had the honour just this week of being decorated by the Royal College of Music. Pity they couldn't afford a real tree. Okay. Each team will provide a rendition of a suitably seasonal tune, duetting on the Swanee whistle and kazoo, with accompaniment from Colin Sell on the merry organ. Actually, 1999 was an exciting year for Colin. At the grand reopening of Covent Garden Opera House, he was asked to stand in for a tenor. And that's about £3 more than you usually get. We have another musical interlude now with the round called Swanee Kazoo. This is where we make merry music by putting together the Swanee whistle, the kazoo, and 4 comedians, not to mention Colin Sell on the piano. I wasn't meant to read you that bit, incidentally. It was just a note to myself. Actually, Colin was telling us before the show that he once toured Britain with the Monkees. Then Mr. Chipperfield promoted him to the Elephants. And gave him a bigger shovel. Piano accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell. Actually, we've realized after all these years that when it comes to choosing a pianist, Colin is 1 in a million. Yes, really. How unlucky can you get? Accompaniment will be provided by none other than Colin Sell, the man who's forgotten more about playing the piano than the rest of us know. And he's about to prove it. And while the merry chirp of the Swanee whistle is complemented by the cheery rasp of the kazoo, Colin Sell will provide accompaniment on the piano. Incidentally, we were interested to learn that Colin was recently described by critics as the next Dylan. Which is why he's got the rabbit outfit on for his Musical backing will be provided by Colin Sell. As a matter of interest, Colin was telling us he's recently been supporting Steps. So if anyone's looking for a good window cleaner's mate, he's your man. Right, we'll start. Piano accompaniment will be provided by none other than Colin Sell. Actually, Colin was telling us he's just completed a 3-week run on Broadway. His was the slowest time ever recorded for the Tooting Marathon. Musical backing at the piano will be provided by Colin Sell. As a matter of fact, Colin was telling us he's writing a symphony and he's been locked away completing his first movement. Most people just read the newspaper. You know? Musical accompaniment at the piano will be provided by Colin Sell. These days, we only really know Colin for his work at the piano. But as a young lad, he cut his teeth on the harmonica. Until his teacher explained he wasn't supposed to chew it. Piano accompaniment will be provided as ever by Colin Sell, who was telling us that following a recent course, he now knows Handel's work. What great training days they run in B&Q's door department. It's quite remarkable how many singing acts involve members of a family. We think of the Everly brothers, the Nolan sisters, the Osmonds. Coincidentally, pianist Colin Sell was once mistaken for a member of the Partridge family. It took him nearly 3 weeks to pick the lead shot out of his back. Piano accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell, who was telling us earlier that he was handsomely rewarded last week for performing at a bachelor's concert. So if anyone needs a cheap catering pack of cuppa soup, see Colin afterwards. Piano accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell, who was telling us he spends an hour every day studying opera. When her show's finished, he switches over and watches Jerry Springer. Piano accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell, who, we were interested to learn, was spotted back in 1969 playing with the Stones in Hyde Park. The keeper said if he caught Colin throwing them at the Ducks again, he'd call the police. The opening team may challenge to take over the song if they spot a transgression, while piano accompaniment is provided by Colin Sell. Actually, we have some exciting news about Colin's career, as he's just become the new manager of Courtney Pine. What a fine second-hand furniture shop that is. Piano accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell, who listeners may be interested to learn is rumoured to be going out with a member of All Saints. If the verger finds out it's his wife, he'll stop Colin using the church hall for banjo practice. Right. Piano accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell, who, we're all amazed to hear, was once invited to go on a tour by Otis Redding. We had no idea the famous lift manufacturer held open days at their Berkshire factory. Right. Yes, Swanee and kazoo are two words that go together like cheese and onion, prawn and cocktail, smoky and bacon, or overpriced and disgusting. All the while remembering that the words Colin, Sell and pianoforte go together like please, God and not again. Tim and Andy, you'll start with the round. The round is called Karaoke Koki, and it'll be led by Colin Sell at the piano. In fact, we heard from him earlier singing you put your left leg in, you put your right leg in, and then realised he was reading from the instructions that came with his trousers. Right, Colin will play a short introduction to a well-known tune. Accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell, who I was interested to read has something of a reputation for his funk music arrangements. According to my copy of the Arts Guardian, if it's a good dance rhythm you want, you can always rely on Colin Sell to funk it up. 1 plus 2 equals 3, and the numbers 1, 2, 3, usually expressed in that order by experts, are the factors of 6, which is what's known as the first perfect number. And the only thing I know for certain about a perfect number is that we've never yet heard one from Colin Sell. It was back in 1972 that Colin first started to learn the piano. Within 2 or 3 weeks, he could manage to tap out a few basic tunes with one finger. Obviously, his later career never fulfilled that early promise. Actually, we were interested to hear that Colin was responsible for bringing the Beatles to Abbey Road. Camden Council have just sent in the pest controller's bill for fumigating the entire block. We'll start with the piano accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell. Actually, we're all amazed to hear that until recently Colin played exclusively with ELO, REM and M&M, till someone pointed out that his Scrabble set was missing a few tiles. Piano accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell. Incidentally, listeners may be interested to learn that Colin is famous for his arrangements of Scotch reels, having just won Pound Stretcher's Sticky Tape Display of the Year award. In just a minute, the players are required to speak for 60 seconds without hesitation, deviation or repetition. As ours is a musical version of the game, we've asked Colin Sell to provide piano accompaniment. Colin was telling us that he recently wrote a horn concerto for 2 cornets. The client was so impressed he threw in a mivvy and a chalk ice as well. Piano accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell. As a matter of fact, listeners may be interested to learn that Colin once composed a symphony in B-flat with 2 overtures in C and A. That must have been a slow afternoon for him on the underpants counter. Right. Piano accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell. Listeners will be interested to learn that Colin is well respected in the music business. I'm given to understand that he's particularly admired by simple minds. Right. To provide the piano accompaniment, I have to mention Colin and Sell. Words that go together as naturally as arse and elbow.
Oh, bless.
Piano accompaniment will be provided as ever by Colin Sell. Colin was telling us earlier that he recently performed Mozart's horn concertos in A and E until he was assaulted by one of the patients. At least he was handily placed to have his trumpet surgically removed. Okay, we'll start. Musical accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell at the piano. Colin was telling us earlier that he was once asked to play the piano for Sammy Davis Jr. And what a nice little school that was. Okay, we'll start. When I say that any content causing offence to the ear will be removed, we will, of course, have to make one exception. The piano accompaniment of Colin Sell. Actually, we were all very impressed to learn that Colin once played alongside Roy Orbison. Orbison, of course, was nicknamed the Big O, and in turn he affectionately referred to Colin as that little C. Right, musical accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell at the piano. And listeners may be interested to learn that the piano is far from being Colin's only instrument. As a banjo player, Colin is noted for his unusual picking style. No matter how many times he's told to use a hanky. Piano accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell, who we were interested to learn has recently been working on a new arrangement of the Four Seasons. Sadly, he got too close putting the olives in the cheese and burnt his eyebrows out. We'll start with musical accompaniment in this round will be provided at the piano by Colin Sell. Actually, listeners may be fascinated to learn that before Christmas, Colin was employed to play the piano for the Stranglers. You can imagine how things were livened up in that turkey abattoir. Okay, Barry.
Okay, F. Sorry. Oh. Open the lid! Open the lid!
Well, you've got to play one note.
Yes, it's worrying when that's beyond you.
Piano accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell. Listeners may be interested to know that Colin was once asked by Errol Brown to play the piano for hot chocolate. And Errol said if Colin was any good, he'd throw in some biscuits. Okay, Barry, we'll start with you. Piano accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell. See, the word sticks in my throat. Actually, we have some rather exciting news about Colin. It's exactly 40 years to the day that he took his first piano lesson. So to celebrate, the teams have chipped in and raised enough to send him back for a second one. Actually, it's been said one has more chance of being struck by lightning than meeting a piano player like Colin Sell. Which is why we all spent most of last week standing out in the rain holding metal rods. Musical accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell, who's rightly famous for his piano arrangements, although he can get you tickets for most other ferry operators. Okay, Tim. Piano accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell. Listeners may be interested to learn that some years ago Colin came very close to winning the Leeds piano competition. If only he'd bought those 2 extra raffle tickets. This round requires musical accompaniment, and listeners will be interested to learn that back in the 70s, our resident pianist played with Johnny Rotten and Sid Vicious, which was when he took the equally off-putting stage name of Colin Sell. Piano accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell. Actually, listeners will be impressed to learn that back in the 60s, Colin asked Mick Jagger and Keith Richards if he could take the place of Brian Jones. They said yes and threw him in the swimming pool. Piano accompaniment for the songs will be provided by Colin Sell. In fact, Colin puts in so much practice he must know these tunes backwards. Certainly sounds like it. Well, with that explained, piano accompaniment will be provided by Dennis King. Listeners will be interested to learn that Dennis studied at the Guildhall School of Music and went on to become Britain's most accomplished writer of TV music, including the themes from Black Beauty, Wurzel Gummidge and Lovejoy. With countless film and TV credits and appearances, his glittering career eventually presented Dennis the ultimate professional challenge, standing in for Colin Sell. Now, as Colin Sell can't be here tonight, we're very lucky to get Dennis King in his place. Hang on, I'll say that again. As Colin Sell can't be here, we're very lucky. To get Dennis King in his place is truly a pleasure. Actually, listeners may be interested to learn that Colin spent many years working with Johnny Cash. Somebody had to empty those condom machines. Okay. Incidentally, Colin was explaining he's been away on a Def Leppard tour. At least he said it was a Def Leppard tour. There was nothing wrong with the animals' hearing when he started. While piano accompaniment is provided by Colin Sell. Now, many may... Yeah, I quite agree. Now, many may think that Colin's live performances are a little staid, but his recent tour was just like Franz Ferdinand's. Every time Colin visited a town, someone tried to shoot him, and then Russia invaded Austria-Hungary. Piano accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell. Listeners may... That was totally unnecessary. Listeners may be interested to learn that Colin was recently asked to join an Ultravox revival tour when it was discovered he's a favourite of midges. So they had him hosed down with DDT. Piano accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell. Students of music history may be interested to learn that Colin often used to produce muddy waters. And what a popular exam subject Colin is at the rare diseases unit. Piano accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell. Listeners may be impressed to learn that Colin has recently been doing...
There was an applause.
Listeners may be impressed to learn that Colin has recently been doing arrangements for the Barber of Seville. It's reckoned to be one of the neatest displays of condoms ever. Okay, teams, your song is Chanson d'amour. Piano accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell. Listeners will be fascinated to learn that Colin used to play with Van Morrison. Whenever he was playing with Morrison, Colin would use the greeting, "Van the man," and in return Morrison would cheerily reply, "Sell the piano." Piano accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell. Listeners may be interested to learn that Colin is often referred to as another Little Richard. What a cruel thing is rhyming slang. Tim and Stephen. Piano accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell. Listeners may be interested to learn that Colin has recently published his Play in a Day piano tutor. Yes, if complete beginners were to spend a day practicing, they could play almost like Colin. Or if they didn't bother at all, exactly like him. Piano accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell, and I have some instructions for Colin. You're to start in the key of G major, then slide down to C sharp before changing to A minor halfway through the 7th bar. Begin playing in 4/4 time, but switch to 3/4 randomly before speeding up to double time towards the end. Have you got that? Yep. Well, you should. That's how you did it last time. Piano accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell. Listeners may be interested to hear that Colin has recently been promoting medieval minstrels. The public health people say that if they catch him selling out-of-date chocolate again, they'll prosecute. Accompaniment will be provided by Colin Sell. Listeners will be interested to learn that when Sir Simon Rattle heard Colin play some of his own compositions recently, he said Colin deserved to be recorded and orchestrated. I know which option I'd go for. Jack and Andy.
Whoa.
Ouch!
Gotcha.
How did you find me in the dark?
Playing that swanny whistle gave your position away. Who are you?
I am Colin, the White Rabbit.
Oh dear. Is that a grand piano in front of you, or are you unbelievably pleased to see me?
Well, it's an upright.
Good. For a moment I thought it was a piano.